This is ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450. Zach Seyko here, and on the line we are joined by State College boys varsity lacrosse head coach Tyler Kaluza. Tyler, thank you so much for joining me on the line today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. It'll be a privilege to get to know more about the team, more about the program, as now we have put winter sports in the rearview mirror and spring sports are the focus. I'm excited to talk about some various things like the build-up to the season, practices, the schedule itself, the individual players, and then overall goals for the season. So let's start to the build-up of the season. What kind of work was put into the off-season so that the team could be where it is? And do you feel like they're off to a good start so far based on the work that they have put in?
Yeah, so once fall sports, we had a lot of fall sport athletes. So once that kind of got settled down, the kids have, over the last 10, 15 years after the program started, actually have an indoor box lacrosse league. It gets pretty competitive. So we actually do that at one of the middle schools in the gym. Kids have about 4 teams, and they go throughout the whole winter, just kind of focusing on our skills and developing good stick skills and things like that. Becomes pretty competitive and end up with a champion. So as far as that, that was a good start. And then we did some off-season conditioning as well once got to the spring, kind of like February-ish. I guess it would be more winter, but did some conditioning there, had about 25 guys there, and then kind of had to get a restart because we had spring break at State College, and a lot of our guys were going away. So that week was kind of an optional week, and then we got really the ball rolling about the March 14th is when our first full practice was. And then we had a scrimmage that week, which went really well. And then all of a sudden it was our first game. So the guys have put in a lot of work in this off season. And I think we're right on par for where we need to be to start the season.
How have practices been now that it's okay? It's not just about focusing on the little things. You mentioned the stick work, but now it's about winning games. You get better in the off season. Now it's time for that to translate to the regular season. What's the intensity like at practice? How are they conducted? What separates a good from an okay or a bad practice to you?
I think a good practice is we are constantly moving. We only go an hour and a half, but we're really efficient. We get a lot done in that time frame. Our conditioning is done during practice because every kid knows the expectation is that we're going to go all out in every drill we do or every scenario we do. So our conditioning is done through that. It's really competitive. We usually have one or two teams, and whoever loses has to do some sort of consequence, whether that's push-ups or running of some sort, just to get in that competitive mindset, because that's what it's going to be like when it comes to the game. So I think that our practices have been really good so far. They can definitely always be better, but the older guys have really taken the expectations of what we built on from last year, and it's kind of trickled down to those young guys, as we have a really relatively young team in terms of only having like 6 or 7 seniors. So I think overall practices have been good, and we can always continue to get better.
And now looking at the schedule, like you said, the regular season has started. This team's up off the ground. What are the toughest parts of the schedule? I know everyone has the 1-0 mentality, but for you, is there any stretch of the schedule, maybe it's a set of away games and travel that's factored in, or tough, really, conference opponents or rivals, if you consider them, that you look at and you say, okay, this part of the schedule, we really need to be ready to go?
Yeah, playing in the Mid-Penn, obviously, it's going to be a battle each and every week. So, we've got a lot of good teams that we play. Really good programs. So, Trinity and Hershey have always been really strong programs. We've got them coming up in the next week or two with makeups, and we had a game delayed yesterday, postponed. So our toughest schedule comes mid to late April. We've got actually 4 games in 5 days. So it's going to be a gauntlet there for our kids, but I think it's going to help us in the long run when we get towards playoffs. And then ending up with the season, we actually have 3 straight away games versus Lower Dauphin, Palmyra, and Carlisle. So I think it's going to be challenging. There's no question about it. And traveling in the Mid-Penn is usually an hour and a half or more travel time. So our kids have that mentality that we're road warriors, and we're going to do that each and every time we go out on the road. So like you said, that 1-0 mentality definitely sticks. But you go in lacrosse, you're going Tuesday, Thursday games. So you really only have that one kind of day in between to get things rolling and make your corrections and then go to the next battle. So I think our kids are ready for it. They understand the expectations and are looking forward to the challenges.
State College varsity boys lacrosse head coach Tyler Kaluza is on the line with us here on ESPN Radio. To look back at the schedule, the games that you played, an impressive win against Bishop McDevitt and then a tough one against Cumberland Valley. What have been some of the takeaways so far? Things that you felt that needed to be applauded and continued, and things that, hey, we need to tweak that a little bit in practice?
I think obviously going against Cumberland Valley, they are really top of the Mid-Penn in terms of lacrosse and overall athletics. They always are. So we knew it was going to be a challenge, and we were happy with our guys. They were competitive. If you looked at last year, we were out of that game midway through the first quarter. It was just a rout. I think our guys played hard the entire game. There was never a question of attitude or effort, which is always what you want to see as a coach. There's definitely some things we can fix as far as it comes to lacrosse, but I was really happy with our effort and attitude in that game, and I think that's going to be a nice teaching point going forward. There's definitely some corrections to make, but playing a top-tier team like Cumberland Valley and hanging in there with them, I think that's only going to add to our success in midway and at the end of the year as we go towards the playoffs, hopefully.
What are some of the strengths of this team, whether it is the passing, communication, the speed, good offense, solid defense? Where does State College really hang its hat on when it comes to competing out on the lax field?
I think number one is, like I said, it's our effort and attitude. You know, I always say, and our coaches always say, dominate the things you can control, which is your effort and attitude every day at practice, every day in the game. So I think if you look at us when you go out on the lacrosse field, we're going to be aggressive, we're going to be competitive, and we're going to give it our all every time we go out there. So I think those are some things that, as far as the controllables that we're striving to keep getting better at, but we've shown some things so far. As far as offensively goes, we've got some good speed around our middies and our attack. I think our passing has been fairly decent so far. It can get better. And then as far as defense goes, we're very aggressive there. We've got some multi-sport athletes there that have that mentality of that they have to be aggressive, and they got to communicate, and they got to do a good job. And obviously our goalie, Zach Paterno, has done some really good things as well, and he's continuing to get better each and every game. So I think all around, again, those things we can control. Our hustle, our effort, our attitude, those are things that have shined so far. And as far as the X's and O's and lacrosse goes, we'll continue to get better at that each and every week.
You mentioned his name. Who are some of the other names that deserve the recognition? I know you could go through the whole roster and say what they do right and why they should be listed, but from the captains to guys that have really worked hard in the offseason to maybe work their way into a starting role or good minutes, who are some of the guys that really propel this team forward?
Yeah, our captains is our attackman Leo Vandervoort, the senior. He's been awesome throughout the offseason. Had a really strong year as a junior last year, and he's leading our team in goals right now with 8 goals. So he's been a strong offensive jolt for us. Carter Williams, also a captain. He's a junior, an offensive midi. Believe he has 7 goals right now. So he's having a really strong year so far. And then our other captain, Owen Perry, 3 really good leaders. He's a senior. 3 really good leaders that have set the tone for what we want to do this season. And then some other guys that are stepping back from last year. Jack Morris on defense, who was an all Mid-Penn selection last year. So he's definitely contributed as well as Kyle Cunningham, who was also a second-team Mid-Penn long stick midi. So having those guys back on the defensive end is really significant and helps us become more competitive and just give the other kids that confidence they need to have success. There's a boatload of kids you can list. So freshmen that are standing out right now are Ty Salazer and Cooper Brushwood on the offensive end. Stepping in right away to contribute as freshmen is very impressive in the Mid-Penn. And then having Ryan D'Amico on defense, a kid that has been out of sports the last couple of years with some injuries, being able to see him compete and just be a great leader for us on the defensive end is something to know for him as well. So we got a great group of kids, guys that want to win and guys that want to do the right thing each and every day. So I'm looking forward to it as our season keeps going on.
State College lacrosse head coach Tyler Kaluza on the line here on ESPN Radio. Another question I have is, it's still young in the season, but what are the overall goals for this year? Is it to win a Mid-Penn title? Is it to win a certain amount of games, to get guys better? What expectations has State College set for itself this season?
Yeah, so we have had a couple of meetings with our leadership team and a lot of the players a couple of times in the off season, and the number one goal that all the players wanted to do was win the Mid-Penn. Obviously, that's still an attainable goal, and we want to keep getting towards that goal each and every week. And that kind of goes with our philosophy of getting better each and every week. We know it's going to be a gauntlet of a schedule coming up here, and if we can keep competing and winning games and getting better, those are some goals that we have as far as a team. And obviously, you want to make playoffs. Last year, we got there, hosted a district playoff game, and ended up losing. So we want to get back to that same stage. We want to win that playoff game this year and then go through District 3 for playoffs if we get there. So those are some team goals we have. And overall, it starts with the coaches. It starts with our senior leaders of what those goals are and how we're going to achieve them as a team.
For yourself personally as a head coach, as you continue to build this program, where have you seen yourself grow in educating these players and making better young men on the lacrosse field, on and off the field? Where do you see yourself as more of an inspirational leader for this group of guys?
Yeah, so when I took over last year, the main message that I wanted to get across was to change the culture of State College lacrosse. Not saying that anything in the past was wrong, but we wanted to kind of rebrand our sport at State College and continue to grow this sport. It's still a growing sport in the community, and we want to be a part of that change that gets people excited to play lacrosse. We've recruited a bunch of athletes from other sports. Myself coaching two other sports, in football and basketball, I've been able to get some kids that haven't played lacrosse before, but we're good athletes and great kids that would contribute. So that's where we kind of want to be as far as inspiring kids to play that. And we go back to our three kind of philosophies, core values of know your role, do your job, and bring the juice in everything we do. Those are some things that we do every single day, and we want to try to kind of change that image of lacrosse. And that starts with me doing it every day. And then our kids buying into it. And I think that the seniors last year set the tone for how the culture change is going to be. These guys this year have continued to set that tone. And I think overall, as my job as a coach, if I can inspire these kids to be great lacrosse players, but even better young men off the field, that's what you're in it for as a coach. And I think that these kids have continued to buy into that. And we're looking to keep growing the culture and the sport of lacrosse.
What is that direct message to these guys? Because I'm from Maryland originally, and I know that the sport of lacrosse is very popular there. You're seeing Maryland's the number one team in men's lacrosse in the country right now. You have Salisbury that has 24 national titles and is making the jump from D3 to Division I. They announced very recently. So in Pennsylvania, where Penn State has very respectable programs in both men's and women's lacrosse, so what is your message to continue to get teenagers to be interested in the game, to grow a love for it?
I think I think in the school, it's communication and just, again, being able to have relationships with these kids and know that me asking them to play a sport that's going to help them in other sports, I think that really gets a lot of buy-in. I think just getting them to watch it and getting them to have experiences by going to a Penn State lacrosse game and watching the sport. It's a fun sport. It's very similar. I always say it's kind of like a football, basketball, and hockey kind of merged together. That's what you get with lacrosse. So I think that the more we continue as a coaching staff and as players to recruit their peers to come out and try it out. Even if you don't like it, at least you came out and try it out. But the kids that I've been able to help recruit to the lacrosse team have all loved it. We have 2 or 3 guys this year that have never played before that are stepping in right away at varsity, and the same thing happened last year. So overall, I think it's just getting them that exposure to the sport, understanding that it's a fun, competitive sport, and something that's going to really help you in your other sports that you play.
One final time, State College's varsity boys lacrosse head coach Tyler Kaluza. Tyler, thank you so much for this conversation today and an insight into the program and the team you're building for this season.
Yes, thank you, Zach, for having me. I really appreciate it.